There is something I have been sitting with all week. A question that kept surfacing at strange hours while I was making tea, while I was watching the sky go that particular shade of deep orange it gets just before full dark. A question about fire, and about birds, and about a choice that, once you really sit with it, seems to reach into something much older and stranger than either of us. Welcome, night friend. I am so glad you are here. Settled in, lights low or gone entirely, the day folded up and set aside for now. This hour was made for exactly this, for the quiet, for the dark, for something curious and slow to fill the space where all that noise used to be. If these evenings bring you some peace, some softness at the end of a long day, I would love it if you left a like or a comment or subscribed so I find you again tomorrow night. But there is no pressure in that. Truly. You do not owe me anything except perhaps a single slow breath before we begin. Tonight we are going to talk about fire, about birds, about the bewildering, almost impossible fact that certain birds, not by accident, not by mistake, not because they are confused or frightened, but deliberately and repeatedly, and with what appears to be something very close to intention, fly toward wildfires. Into the smoke, toward the orange wall of it. And why they do this is one of those things that, once you understand it, quietly rearranges a small piece of how you see the living world. So let us go there gently. Fire. We talk about fire as if it is purely destructive. And I understand why fire is terrifying. Fire takes things. Fire changes the world into ash in a matter of hours. But the natural world has had a relationship with wildfire for hundreds of millions of years. Long before our cities, long before our houses and our fields, fire moved across the earth the way seasons move cyclically, hungrily, and as part of something. The earliest evidence of large-scale wildfire in the fossil record goes back roughly 350 million years. That is a number so large, it does not quite fit in the mind. Let me try to hold it for you. 350 million years ago, the land was covered not in the trees we know, no oaks, no pines, no cedars, but in vast swamps of towering fern-like plants, club mosses the size of buildings, forests of soft green giants that had never been named. And fire moved through them. And creatures survived it, or didn't. And the ones that survived it, eventually over time, beyond time, became something that understood fire. Birds belong to that long inheritance. Before they were birds, they were small feathered theropod dinosaurs, darting through a world that had already known 100 million years of fire. By the time something recognizably bird-shaped appeared in the fossil record, around 150 million years ago, wildfire was already ancient. Already familiar. Already woven into the landscape in ways that life had learned to read. I find something deeply settling about that. The idea that fire is not the enemy of life so much as it is one of its oldest teachers. Let your shoulders drop a little, if they haven't already. Wherever you are holding tension right now, notice it, and just let that noticing be enough. Now, the birds. We should talk about which birds we mean, specifically, before anything else, because this is not a vague or general phenomenon. This is not something all birds do. It is something particular birds do, and they do it with a kind of purposefulness that researchers have spent decades trying to fully understand. The most studied and documented of these birds are the raptors, the birds of prey, and specifically a small group that includes the black kite, the whistling kite, the brown falcon, and the spotted harrier. All four of these species have been observed repeatedly and in significant numbers converging on active wildfire fronts in Australia. They fly into the smoke. They circle above and ahead of the flames. They swoop down ahead of the fire's edge, and they carry things away. They carry burning sticks. Let me say that again, because it is the thing that stops people mid-sentence when they first hear it. These birds pick up smoldering twigs and branches in their talons or their beaks, materials that are actively burning or still glowing with heat, and they carry them, sometimes a short distance, sometimes a kilometer or more, and they drop them. In unburned grass, in dry scrubland, in patches of forest that the original fire had not yet reached. They are, in the most literal sense, spreading the fire. Indigenous Australian people have known about this behavior for thousands of years. It appears in oral traditions, in story, in ecological knowledge passed between generations, across deep time. In the Marlinya language group of the Northern Territory, certain birds associated with this behavior are sometimes called firehawks, a name that is not merely poetic, but descriptively accurate in a way that modern science is only recently catching up to. The idea that non-human animals might deliberately manipulate fire is something that Western science held at arm's length for a very long time. It challenged something, a boundary. The idea that intentional tool use involving fire was uniquely, exclusively human. And so for many decades, the reports from indigenous rangers and observers were politely noted and quietly set aside. In 2017, a peer-reviewed paper was published in the Journal of Ethnobiology by researchers Bob Gosford, Dick Eads, and others, drawing together decades of first-hand accounts from Aboriginal land managers and fire practitioners, as well as direct field observations, into a formal scientific record. It was, in some ways, science finally listening to what had already been known. There is a quiet lesson in that, I think, about who holds knowledge, about how long it can wait, patient and unhurried, for the rest of the world to notice. Let us stay with the birds for a moment before we go deeper into the why. The black kite, Milvus migrans, is one of the most widely distributed birds of prey in the world. If you have been to India or sub-Saharan Africa or across much of Asia or the warmer parts of Europe, you have almost certainly seen one without knowing what it was. They are medium-sized birds, roughly the length of your forearm, with a wingspan that stretches to somewhere around 140 centimeters at its widest. Their tails are distinctively forked, slightly notched, and it is this detail, more than anything else, that helps you pick them out of a busy sky. In Australia, the black kite is a year-round resident across the northern and inland regions. They are opportunistic hunters and scavengers. They eat insects, small reptiles, frogs, carrion, fish when they can get it, and they are not above stealing from other birds if something worth stealing presents itself. They are sociable in a way that raptors often are not. You might see them in groups of dozens, sometimes hundreds, wheeling together on the thermals above open woodland or grassland. They are also deeply clever. Observational studies have noted that black kites in some parts of the world gather at busy roads, watching for animals struck by passing vehicles. They follow harvesting equipment across fields, waiting for the small creatures disturbed by the machinery. They have learned that certain human activities produce food, and they have structured their movements around that knowledge. The brown falcon, Falco berigora, is an Australian native, a compact and powerful bird of open country with variably brown-streaked plumage and large, expressive dark eyes. It is a generalist hunter, willing to run along the ground after prey as readily as stoop from the sky, which makes it unusual among falcons. It has been described by ornithologists as one of the most behaviorally flexible falcons in the world. Flexible. That word keeps coming up when people talk about these firehawk species. The spotted harrier Circus acimalis is perhaps the most beautiful of the group, in my entirely personal opinion. Its underparts are a deep chestnut orange barred with white spots, and its back and wings are a cool blue-gray. It glides low over open grassland with a characteristic tilting, rocking flight, holding its wings in a shallow V. Watching a spotted harrier quarter a field is watching something that knows exactly what it is doing. There is a precision in it, a patience. All of these birds share certain things beyond their fire-seeking behavior. They are all built for open country. They all have excellent, long-range vision. They can all detect smoke from great distances. And they have all evolved in a landscape where fire is not an anomaly, but a rhythm. You might be wondering, quite reasonably, what exactly draws a bird to fly toward a wildfire? Not the spreading of it, we will come back to that, but the initial attraction. What pulls them in? The answer is, first and most simply, food. A wildfire front is, from a hunting bird's perspective, one of the most reliable food events in the natural world. As fire moves across grassland or scrubland, everything living in that vegetation is flushed out ahead of the flames. Insects, grasshoppers, beetles, crickets, moths pour out of the burning grass in enormous numbers. Small mammals, mice, dunnarts, small wallabies sprint ahead of the heat. Lizards emerge from cover. Snakes move. Frogs leave their burrows. In a single, concentrated, unavoidable wave, the fire drives every creature in its path into the open, confused, panicked, moving, and therefore catchable. For a bird that hunts open ground, this is extraordinary. On a normal day, prey is scattered across kilometers of vegetation, hidden in grass, sheltering in shade, impossible to predict. But at a firefront, the prey concentrates. It converges. It has nowhere else to go. Researchers have observed black kites arriving at firefronts sometimes within minutes of the fire beginning. Not hours, minutes. They detect smoke, they recognize what it means, and they fly toward it from distances that can exceed 50 kilometers. Sometimes a handful of birds arrive first, and within an hour there are hundreds. There is something almost civilizational about that. A shared understanding, passed not through speech but through something older instinct, layered over memory, layered over 10,000 generations of birds who went to the fire and came back full. But here is where it gets genuinely strange. The carrying of burning material, the firehawk behavior in its most specific form, is not just about feeding at the firefront. It appears to be about creating new firefronts. Think about what that means for a moment. A bird picks up a burning stick, carries it a kilometer away, drops it in unburned grass. The grass catches. A new fire starts. Animals flee that fire. The bird and the other birds who have been watching now have a second feeding station, a second concentrated flush of prey, in addition to the original fire. This is not accidental. Accidental fire spreading would be random, a bird dropping a stick because it lost grip, the stick landing on dry grass by coincidence. But the observations that have been documented describe birds carrying material specifically to unburned areas, repeatedly, across a firebreak, to the other side of a road that the original fire could not cross. The intelligence that would require not just in a single bird, but as what appears to be learned, shared behavior within a group, is remarkable. Bob Gosford, one of the researchers who helped formalize the scientific record of this behavior, described witnessing a brown falcon pick up a burning stick, fly across a firebreak, a cleared strip of land designed specifically to stop fire spreading, and drop it in vegetation on the other side. The vegetation caught. A new fire started. The falcon hunted the resulting flush of prey. A firebreak is, from a human fire management perspective, one of the most important tools we have for controlling wildfire. And a brown falcon, in an individual act, circumvented one. I want to be careful here, because careful is the right approach. Science does not yet have absolute certainty that every instance of this behavior reflects conscious, deliberate intention in the way we might use those words about a human act. Animal cognition is complex, and the line between instinct, learned behavior, and something we might call purposeful reasoning is not always bright or fixed. But the observations are there. They have been made by multiple independent observers. They have been documented across different fire events, different locations, different bird species. Something is happening. Something is being passed between these birds, some knowledge, some strategy that shapes how they behave around fire in ways that serve them. Notice, right now, how your body feels. The weight of it. The places where you are touching the surface beneath you. This moment is not asking anything of you. You are just here, listening. Let the images move through you like smoke through open country passing, drifting, not requiring anything to be done about them. Let us think about Australia for a moment. Because to understand these birds fully, you have to understand the landscape they evolved in. Australia is the most fire-prone continent on Earth. This is not an accident of recent history or climate change alone, though climate change has made things more extreme, but a deep geological and ecological fact. The Australian continent separated from the other land masses of Gondwana around 80 million years ago. As it drifted north toward its current position, it dried. The forests thinned, grasslands expanded, and the plants that survived were, increasingly, the ones that had made some accommodation with fire. Eucalyptus trees, gum trees, the dominant tree across much of Australia, are not merely fire-tolerant. They are, in a meaningful sense, fire-adapted. Their bark is often papery and peeling ideal fuel. Their leaves are full of flammable oils that vaporize in heat, producing the distinctive blue haze of the Australian bush and also helping fires burn hot and fast. Their seeds are housed in tough, woody capsules called follicles that in many species only open properly after exposure to fire's heat. The fire, in other words, is not the tree's enemy. The fire is part of the tree's reproductive strategy. There is a species called the grass tree Xanthorrhoea that I find particularly affecting. It grows in open woodland across Australia, a black-skirted plant with a crown of long grass-like leaves, and it grows extraordinarily slowly. A trunk 1 meter tall may represent 100 years of life. After fire, the grass tree does not die. It sends up a flowering spike, a single tall spear rising from the charred skirt, covered in hundreds of small white flowers within weeks of the burn. It is not recovering from fire. It is flowering because of fire. The heat is its signal to bloom. This is the landscape the firehawks live in. A world that runs on fire, the way other worlds run on rain. A world where fire is not catastrophe but calendar. Aboriginal Australians have managed this landscape with fire for at least 65,000 years, possibly longer. This practice, sometimes called cultural burning or cool burning or caring for country, involves setting deliberate, low-intensity fires to manage vegetation, create habitat mosaics, encourage the growth of food plants, and maintain the health of the land. It is one of the oldest continuous land management traditions in human history, possibly the oldest. The knowledge systems embedded in these practices are extraordinarily detailed. They account for season, wind direction, humidity, the condition of specific plants, the needs of specific animals. They account for the birds. The firehawk birds are not unknown to this tradition. They are integrated into it, recognized as participants in a fire ecology that humans are also part of. Some researchers who have worked with Aboriginal fire practitioners describe the relationship between human burners and the firehawk birds as almost cooperative. Not intentionally cooperative in the sense of a deliberate agreement, but structurally cooperative, in that both human fire practitioners and the birds are operating within the same fire ecology, and the actions of each, in their different ways, contribute to a landscape pattern that supports life for both. That kind of deep, unconscious, multi-generational entanglement between species is one of the things I find most quietly astonishing about ecology. Not the dramatic predator and prey stories, not the spectacular migrations, but the slow, invisible weaving of lives into a shared system. I want to take a small detour here, because there is something adjacent to this story that deserves its own moment. The firehawks are not the only birds that have found ways to turn wildfire to advantage. They are simply the most dramatic. Many species of insect-eating birds follow fire edges in a way that is not quite as extreme as the firehawk behavior, but is still purposeful and significant. In North America, the black-backed woodpecker has become almost synonymous with post-fire forest. It is a bird that specifically seeks out forests in the years immediately following a major fire. Not because it is unchoosing, the black-backed woodpecker actively prefers recently burned forest and will travel extraordinary distances to find it. Why? Because burned trees are full of wood-boring beetle larvae. The beetles, primarily longhorn beetles and jewel beetles, are drawn to fire-killed trees within hours of a blaze. Some of them can detect smoke and heat from distances that researchers have measured at 80 kilometers or more. They find the dead trees, lay their eggs in the bark, and the larvae tunnel deep into the wood. For the black-backed woodpecker, this is a larder. A stocked, reliable larder that only appears in the years after fire. The woodpecker has a bill designed for exactly this work, longer and more chisel-like than most woodpeckers, adapted for excavating deep into fire-killed bark. Some populations in North America spend the large majority of their lives in recently burned forest, following the fires across the landscape as they occur, moving on when the standing dead trees have been depleted. There is a name for this kind of ecological specialization dependence on a disturbed or transitional habitat. The technical word is disturbance specialist. But I prefer the image behind the word, a creature that has found its niche not in the stable and settled, but in the moment of change. Back to the firehawks. There is a question about intelligence and tool use that this behavior raises, and I think it is worth sitting with rather than rushing past. When we say an animal uses a tool, we mean it manipulates an object in the external world to achieve a goal that could not otherwise be achieved. By that definition, the firehawks, if the observations are accurate and the researchers involved, believe they are using fire as a tool. That is a list that, before these observations were formally published, contained exactly one species: us. Now, other animals have been documented using tools. Chimpanzees use sticks to extract termites from mounds. Crows and ravens have demonstrated remarkable object manipulation in controlled settings. Dolphins use sponges to protect their snouts while foraging on the seafloor. Octopuses carry coconut shells to use as portable shelters. The list of tool-using animals grows longer and more surprising every decade. But manipulating fire, carrying fire, deploying fire to create a foraging advantage, that is something else. It does not require us to believe the birds are having complex thoughts about combustion and thermodynamics. It requires only that we acknowledge that some process, learned or instinctive, or some mix of both, is producing behavior that is strategically sophisticated in its outcome. And that is strange enough. Strange and wonderful enough. I want to tell you a little about what fire actually looks like from a bird's eye view. Not metaphorically, literally. From high altitude on a clear day, a wildfire front is visible from a very great distance. The smoke column can rise to several kilometers in height, visible on the horizon for 50 kilometers or more in dry, flat terrain. The thermal updrafts above a fire are intense hot air rising rapidly from the burning ground, creating strong columns that birds use the way surfers use waves. A kite or a falcon approaching a large fire does not fight its way through the smoke. It rides the updrafts at the fire's edge, gaining altitude effortlessly, scanning the ground below. From that height, the fire front is extraordinarily legible. You can see exactly where the flames are advancing, where the unburned grass begins, where the animals are running. The burned ground behind the fire front is often a different color within minutes, dark charcoal against the yellow-brown of dry grass. The thermal contrast tells the bird where the heat is. The smoke tells the bird which way the wind is carrying the fire. From a few hundred meters up, a fire front is not a chaos, it is a map. Raptors process visual information at a resolution we cannot quite imagine. A falcon's eye has two foveas, two areas of highest visual acuity compared to the single fovea of a human eye. This gives them the ability to track fast-moving prey while also maintaining wide peripheral awareness. Their eyes see into the ultraviolet spectrum invisible to us, which allows them to track the urine trails of small mammals which glow in UV light. They can judge distance and speed with extraordinary precision. Looking down at a fire front from above with a raptor's vision is probably something like reading a very clear and detailed text. Here is the fire. Here is where it is going. Here is where the prey will be in 30 seconds. Here is the stick I need. The firehawk behavior has been documented most extensively in northern Australia, the Northern Territory, and parts of Queensland and Western Australia, where the tropical savanna landscape provides ideal conditions. This is a land of broad, dry grassland, punctuated by sparse woodland, baking under a sun that is generous to the point of cruelty for most of the year. The wet season floods it. The dry season hardens it. And in the long months when the grass is brown and the wind is reliable, fire moves through it easily, quickly, sometimes covering tens of thousands of hectares in a single run. In these conditions, the firehawk birds are year-round residents. They know this landscape intimately, its drainage lines, its patches of thick grass, its clearing edges, its termite mounds where small lizards bask. They know where the dry fuel accumulates. They know, from long exposure and possibly from inherited memory, what a fire in this landscape produces. When researchers have tracked individual kites across a fire season in northern Australia, they have found that the birds' movements are significantly correlated with fire activity. When fires are burning, the birds converge on fire-affected areas. When fires are not burning, they disperse more widely. The fire is a signal, and they are reading it. Feel your breath moving in you right now, the slow rise and fall of it. You do not have to do anything with your breath. It is already happening. It has been happening all day without you attending to it. And there is something in that something slightly marvelous about all the things the body does while the mind is busy elsewhere. Let us talk for a moment about the other animals at the firefront. Because the firehawks are not alone in their opportunism. In Australian savannas, a firefront draws an extraordinary community of hungry animals, and the dynamics between them are worth at least a paragraph or two. Dingoes, Australia's native wild dog, a lean and elegant canid with pale gold or ginger fur, also follow firefronts. They trot along the advancing edge, picking off small mammals flushed from the grass. They work the burned ground behind the fire, nosing through the char for anything that did not make it out. Their relationship with fire in the Australian landscape is ancient and practical. They too have had many thousands of generations in which the connection between fire and a good meal was reinforced. Goannas, large monitor lizards, some of them stretching to nearly 2 meters in length, show up at fire edges with a remarkable casualness. They walk along the fire's edge, tongues flickering, catching lizards and large insects that have been exposed or slowed by the heat. A large goanna at a firefront has a calm, deliberate quality about it, not panicked, not fleeing, but present and purposeful. Kookaburras, those compact, heavy-billed kingfishers whose laughing call is one of the most recognizable sounds in Australia, also gather at fire edges. They watch from low branches just ahead of the flames and drop onto insects and small reptiles with precise, neat strikes. There is a whole community at the firefront. A temporary, shifting, electric community of hunters who understand what fire is for. Now, something I want to linger on. The firehawk behavior, the carrying of burning material, is not observed every time these birds attend a fire. It seems to happen more frequently in certain conditions. Firefronts that are approaching natural fire breaks, rivers, roads, already burned ground, areas of low fuel appear to produce more carrying behavior than firefronts moving freely through continuous vegetation. Think about what that implies. It implies that the birds can perceive the firebreak, can read the landscape ahead of the fire, and notice where the fire will stop. And it implies that the response to seeing that obstacle is to circumvent it, to carry fire beyond it. That is not simple opportunism. That is, reading a landscape, predicting an outcome, and taking action to change that outcome. Again, I want to be honest about the limits of what we know. The observations are compelling, but they are largely observational. Controlled experimental studies of this behavior are exceptionally difficult to design and have not yet been conducted at the scale that would allow definitive causal conclusions. The researchers who have published on this subject are careful to hold open questions as open questions. That feels right. That feels like the responsible relationship with knowledge. But the observations exist. The accounts are there, in numbers and from sources that are credible and independent. And the behaviors they describe are, even at their most conservative interpretation, extraordinary. I want to spend a little time on the black kite specifically, because it is the species about which the most has been written and observed in the firehawk context. And because it has a quality I find genuinely lovable. The black kite is, in one sense, an ordinary bird. Not gaudy, not especially large. Brown above, slightly paler below, with that characteristic forked tail. In India, where it is extraordinarily abundant, it is often treated with the casual familiarity reserved for birds that are simply everywhere. They wheel above cities, they steal food from market stalls, they gather above rubbish dumps and fish harbors and open sewers with an apparent indifference to human judgment. But watch one for long enough and something accumulates. There is an intelligence in the way they assess situations, a slight tilt of the head, a subtle adjustment of the tail to change direction, a pause before acting that feels evaluative. Ethologists, scientists who study animal behavior have documented that black kites in some populations appear to learn new foraging strategies by watching other individuals. They are observational learners. They attend to what works for others and incorporate it. In the context of fire, this matters enormously. If one bird discovers that carrying a burning stick creates a new food source, and if that bird is observed by others who then copy the behavior, you have a mechanism for cultural transmission, the spread of a learned behavior through a population, not via genetics, but via watching. Cultural transmission in non-human animals is a field of research that is still relatively young, and the implications are unsettling in the best possible way. It means that animals can pass on knowledge, not instinct, but actual acquired knowledge across generations. It means that a bird hatched this year might have access to strategies discovered by birds that lived decades before it. The fire knowledge of the kites might be very old indeed. There is a quality that emerges when you think about all of this for long enough, when you really sit with the image of a bird carrying fire across a break, the image of an ancient savanna with its community of intelligent hunters at the fire's edge, the image of Aboriginal land managers and their 65,000-year relationship with burning. There is a quality of interconnection so dense and so old that the mind slightly softens around it. Everything eating and being eaten. Everything burning and being born from burning. Everything learning and teaching and learning again. Across timescales that make a human lifetime look like the blink of something very young. I do not think that realization should make us feel small. I think it should make us feel held. Part of something continuous. Something that was going before us and will go after us. Something that already knew how to do this when we arrived. Let us talk about what fire leaves behind. Because the story does not end with the flames. It begins there, in a sense. In the days immediately after a fire, the burned ground in Australian savanna looks stripped and bleak. Black soil, charred sticks, the silver-white ash of grasses. A smell that is smoky and cold and faintly mineral. But within a week, sometimes within days, if there has been any moisture, something begins to happen. Green appears. not gradually, urgently. The grasses of tropical savanna have root systems that go deep. The fire burns what is above ground, but the roots are unaffected, and they respond to the sudden availability of light and nutrients. The nutrients in the ash, the potassium and phosphorus and calcium that the fire has unlocked from the dead plant material by sending up new shoots with extraordinary speed. Within 2 weeks, burned ground in the Northern Territory can be covered in a flush of green so bright it almost hurts to look at. This green flush is, nutritionally, very rich. Fresh growth is more tender, more digestible, and often higher in protein than mature grass. Grazing animals know this. They come to recently burned areas specifically to access this post-fire flush. Kangaroos, wallabies, and buffalo will move considerable distances to graze on the green shoots of freshly burned country. And the animals that prey on grazers follow the grazers, and the birds follow the insects that follow the new growth. The fire creates a pulse, a wave of productivity that moves through the ecosystem over the weeks and months after a burn, feeding different things at different stages, sustaining a community that the fire itself has supported. A few other fire-related bird behaviors are worth mentioning here, because they add texture to the larger picture. In North America, certain owl species, notably the great gray owl, are known to hunt at the edges of recently burned forest, where the clearing of understory vegetation makes small mammals far more visible from above. The owl does not attend the fire itself, but it attends the aftermath, recognizing that burned ground offers hunting advantages unavailable in dense, intact forest. In southern Africa, various species of bee-eater slender, brilliantly colored birds with the aerobatic skill of swallows are regular attendants at savanna fires. They are after the insects, specifically the flying insects, flushed by smoke and heat, and they hawk for them at the fire's edge with spectacular precision, long curved bills snapping shut on individual moths and grasshoppers in mid-air. The carmine bee-eater, a bird of such vivid rose pink and turquoise that seeing one in good light feels slightly unreal, is among the most devoted fire followers on the African continent. In sub-Saharan Africa, the black kite is also a fire follower, which makes evolutionary sense given how closely related the African and Australian populations are. In the African context, the kite's fire-following behavior has been observed for generations and is well documented. What has been documented less thoroughly in Africa is the specific stick-carrying behavior which may occur there too, and simply hasn't been studied as closely or maybe more developed in the Australian population. These are open questions that researchers are actively exploring. I want to take a slow detour into something connected but quieter, into the way birds perceive fire. We know that the kites can detect smoke from great distances. But what do they perceive when they are close to a fire? What is the experience of a bird at a firefront, not in terms of interpretation, but in terms of raw sensation? The heat is significant. A hot savanna fire can produce air temperatures of several hundred degrees Celsius at ground level, though the air at bird height, even 50 meters up, is cooler, supplemented by the strong upward airflow that carries the heat away. The birds circling above a fire are often in relatively cool, fast-moving air, riding the updrafts that the fire itself creates. The sound. Fire has a sound, a crackling, roaring, rushing sound at close range, and a faint popping and hissing from further away as individual seed pods burst and moisture evaporates from stems. Birds' hearing is acute and wide spectrum. They may hear things in the fire's acoustic signature that we would not notice. The light. A fire at night is, for a bird with visual acuity like a raptor's, an almost overwhelming event. The contrast between the orange and white of the flames and the darkness of the surrounding savanna would be extreme. From altitude, a fire at night would look like a strip of molten gold moving across black ground. And the smells. Smoke is a complex chemical mixture, and a bird's olfactory system, while not as primary as in mammals, is not absent. Some researchers believe that birds can detect particular chemical signatures in smoke that indicate the type of vegetation burning, which might provide information about the likely prey to be found at the firefront. To be a kite above an evening fire in the Northern Territory, moving on the warm updrafts, looking down at the advancing wall of light, picking out the silhouettes of fleeing animals against the glow, it seems like it would be something close to what we might call magnificent, if we could know what it feels like from inside. Something keeps coming back to me as I talk about this, and I want to say it plainly because I think it is the thing that matters most. For most of recorded Western natural history, fire was treated as the enemy of living things. The catastrophic event, the destroyer. And there were decades, stretching well into the 20th century, when fire suppression was the dominant land management philosophy in many parts of the world. The idea was to stop fire wherever possible, to protect forests from burning, to prevent what seemed obviously destructive. In many places, this approach caused serious ecological damage. In fire-adapted landscapes, the absence of regular burning allowed vegetation to accumulate beyond its natural density. The fires that eventually occurred in that landscape were larger, hotter, and more destructive than they would otherwise have been. Species that depended on regular burning, the black-backed woodpecker, the Kirtland's warbler in North America, many species of wildflower in Australian heathland declined or vanished from areas that had been too successfully protected from fire. The land was asking for fire, and we were saying no. And the land accumulated that answer, stored it in dry fuel and dense thicket, and eventually answered back with something much larger than what we had been trying to prevent. There is a philosophical moment in there that does not require hammering. The idea that what we resist does not simply disappear, that the natural processes we try to exclude from our lives or our landscapes have a way of returning, perhaps changed, perhaps amplified by the pressure we have put against them. That sometimes the wise thing, the truly careful thing, is not to prevent but to understand and to work with what is rather than against what is. The firehawks already know this. They have known it for longer than agriculture. You are getting quieter now. I can feel it, somehow, even across the strange distance between my voice and wherever you are. The day is further away. The room is your room again, not the room of tasks and decisions and things to remember. Just the room, just the dark, just this. Let me tell you about one more bird before we begin our long, slow descent. One more creature that belongs in this story. The frogmouth. The tawny frogmouth of Australopithecus strigoides is not a raptor, not a hunter of firefronts in the way the kites and falcons are. But it has a relationship with fire-adapted landscape that I find impossibly moving, and it deserves its moment here. The tawny frogmouth looks, at rest, exactly like a broken branch. Not approximately. Not kind of like a branch if you are not paying attention. Exactly like a broken branch. Its plumage is grey and brown and streaked and textured in a way that exactly replicates weathered, lichen-covered wood. Its posture at rest, head tilted upward, body held vertically, eyes narrowed, completes the illusion. It is, by near universal consensus among those who study camouflage, one of the most effective visual mimics in the animal world. In recently burned forest, where dead standing trees are everywhere, where the visual landscape is dominated by charred, silver-grey wood, the frogmouth's camouflage works perfectly. More than in unburned forest, it disappears. In burned country, it is effectively invisible. The frogmouth hunts at night, dropping from a perch onto large insects and small vertebrates, frogs, small lizards, occasionally mice. Its bill is enormous relative to its head, wide, frog-like, hooking slightly at the tip, which gives it its name and also allows it to catch prey with a kind of scooping lunge rather than a precise strike. In post-fire landscape, there is often a flush of the large insects the frogmouth prefers: cockroaches, large beetles, moths attracted to the light of glowing embers, and the combination of abundant prey and perfect camouflage makes recently burned woodland near ideal frogmouth habitat. They are, in their own quiet, motionless way, as much a part of the fire ecology as the kites and falcons. I love the frogmouth particularly because it does everything so slowly. It perches for hours without moving. It watches. It waits. There is a quality to a frogmouth's stillness that feels instructive, not passive, but active in its patience. A deep attending without urgency. I aspire to that, honestly. The frogmouth's relationship with time. There is a concept in ecology called a keystone species. A keystone species is one whose influence on its ecosystem is disproportionately large relative to its abundance. Remove it, and the whole structure changes. Other species decline or disappear, relationships that depended on it unravel, the landscape shifts. Add it back, and things reform around it. Fire, in fire-adapted ecosystems, is sometimes described as a keystone process, a process whose presence or absence shapes the entire ecological community around it. The firehawks, by participating actively in the spread and dynamics of fire, are not merely benefiting from a natural process. They are, in some small but real sense, part of that keystone process. They are agents of the fire, not just its beneficiaries. This is unusual. Very few animals can be said to participate in shaping a fundamental ecological process rather than simply responding to it. Beavers come to mind. They dam streams, they create wetlands, they change the hydrology of entire watersheds. Elephants are another. They open up dense woodland by knocking over trees, creating grassland mosaics that support entirely different communities. Prairie dogs, whose burrows aerate and enrich soil and create habitat for dozens of other species. These are animals that make their habitat rather than merely inhabiting it. The firehawks may belong to that list. They are not the dominant shapers of fire in the Australian landscape. Lightning, wind, human activity, the dryness of the season all matter far more to the overall pattern of burning. But they are participants. They have a role, and their role, like the beaver's dam and the elephant's pushed-over tree, is ecological. In the truest sense, it shapes the world they live in, and in shaping it, they make it more hospitable for themselves and for the many creatures that depend on the same fire ecology. There is something in that about the relationship between intelligence and ecology, about the fact that real intelligence, the kind that has been tested over millions of years and found durable, is not intelligence that works against its environment, but intelligence that finds a way to work within, alongside it. Let us come back to Australia one more time. Not to the fire itself, but to the sky above it. In the northern dry season, running roughly from April through October, there are days when the sky over the savanna is an unbroken deep blue and the air is so clear that the horizon seems farther away than usual. The grass is brown and the trees are dusty, and the termite mounds stand up out of the flat plain like terracotta sculptures. And in that sky, if you watch for long enough, you will see the kites. They are almost always there, in that dry season sky circling on the thermals, sometimes alone, sometimes in groups of a dozen, sometimes in the large aggregations that form around a fire. Their forked tails twist constantly, making minute adjustments to maintain position in the updraft without a single wing beat. They look effortless. They look like things that were made for exactly this air, this light, this height. When you see smoke on the horizon in that dry season sky, you look for the kites. They are usually already there, specks above the smoke column, moving with a purpose that is legible even from a distance. They already know what the smoke means. They are already going. And there is something in that image, the slim, forked silhouettes moving toward the smoke, that I find deeply affecting. Not because it is dramatic, though it is, but because it is so clear, an example of a creature in perfect relationship with its world. Knowing what to do, going to where it needs to be. Without hesitation, without confusion, without the particular kind of paralysis that comes from having too many options and not knowing what is true. Your breath is slower now, I would guess. The thoughts are loosening their edges. If a thought comes through, let it pass, like smoke on a wind you are not standing in. It is not asking you to follow it. Nothing is asking you to follow it tonight. I want to spend a moment on the fire itself, on what fire actually is at the level of chemistry, because it is one of those things that is so familiar that we never quite think about how strange it really is. Fire is, at its most basic, a rapid chemical reaction between oxygen and a fuel, wood, grass, oil, any carbon-based material that releases energy as light and heat. The fire itself, the visible flame, is not a material thing. It is a process, a moving chemical event. The flame is the zone where the reaction is occurring, where the fuel, heated to ignition temperature, is releasing vapors that combine with oxygen and release light and heat, that in turn heat more fuel, which releases more vapor, which sustains the reaction. Fire, in other words, maintains itself. It creates the conditions for its own continuation. It does not burn the fuel so much as it processes it continuously, extracting energy and leaving the residue ash, charcoal, as evidence of its passage. This self-sustaining quality is part of what made fire so transformative in the history of life. Once a fire starts, under the right conditions, it does not stop until the fuel or the oxygen runs out. It moves. It spreads. It follows the fuel. It responds to wind. It behaves, in some loose metaphorical sense, like something alive, consuming, moving, responding to its environment. Ancient humans, including the earliest anatomically modern humans, whose fossils date to around 300,000 years ago, almost certainly had a complex relationship with fire long before they learned to make it. Fire occurred naturally in the landscape where they lived, from lightning, from volcanic activity, from spontaneous combustion of dry organic material in heat. They learned to approach it cautiously, then to use the fires that lightning made, to carry fire, to maintain it, to place it where they needed it. And in doing so, they were doing something not entirely different from what the firehawks do. recognizing fire as a resource rather than just a threat. Understanding that where fire goes, food and warmth and safety can follow. Learning to carry it. We were not the first to make this discovery. The birds were there before us. Let me circle back to the question of how this behavior is passed on. Because if it is not purely instinctive, if it is at least partly learned, then there must be a mechanism for learning it, and that mechanism is worth wondering about. Young black kites spend a significant period of time with their parents after fledging. The fledging period, when the young bird has feathers but is still learning to hunt, lasts several weeks, sometimes months, depending on the individual. During this time, the young bird follows its parents, watches them hunt, and begins practicing hunting behaviors itself. If a parent regularly attends firefronts, if it is observed by the young bird picking up burning material and carrying it, and if the young bird observes the outcome of this behavior, a new fire, a flush of prey, a successful meal, the young bird has the information it needs to incorporate this behavior into its own repertoire. Whether this is what happens is, again, not definitively established. But the mechanism is there. The opportunity for transmission is there. And given that the behavior has been observed across multiple generations and multiple individuals and multiple separate populations, some form of transmission seems the most parsimonious explanation. There is something wonderful in imagining a young kite watching its parent for the first time, at a fire, the smoke, the noise, the rushing heat, the hundreds of other birds, the extraordinary feast of fleeing prey and understanding, in whatever way a bird understands things, that this is important, that this is something worth learning. I want to say something about fire and beauty. Because we have talked a lot about fire as a functional thing, a tool, a resource, an ecological process, and I do not want to leave without acknowledging what fire is to witness. A fire at dusk in open savanna is among the most arresting things I can imagine watching. The orange and red and white of the flames against the dark ground, the smoke rising gold and then grey and then fading blue-grey into the sky above. The sound, the crackle and rush, and occasional deep hollow whoomp as a pocket of gas ignites. The smell of burning grass, which is one of the oldest smells in the human experience, complex and smoky and vaguely sweet from the sugars in the burning plant cells. Humans are drawn to fire. We always have been. There is a comfort in a fire, a hearth, a campfire, something that goes deeper than simple warmth, something that touches the very old part of us, that sat with fire for hundreds of thousands of years before we had walls or roofs. The part of us that looked into the fire and felt less alone in the dark. The kites are drawn to fire too, for their own reasons, from their own deep history. And in that shared orientation toward the fire, the bird and the person, watching the same flames from different heights, with different needs and different minds, but with something recognizably similar in the attention they are paying, there is a kind of accidental kinship. I like that. I like the idea that we and the birds have been watching fires together, separately, across the long curve of time. Let the room hold you for a moment. Whatever surface you are on, it is enough. The dark is enough. The quiet is enough. You do not need to be anywhere else, or doing anything else, or remembering anything. The kites are circling somewhere above a fire you cannot see, and you are here, and both of those things are exactly right. I have not yet talked about what fire seasons feel like in the places where these birds live. Not the ecology of it, but the atmosphere. because I think that matters. In the Northern Territory of Australia, the dry season has a quality that people who have lived there describe in almost physical terms: a particular quality of light, a particular weight of heat, a particular smell to the air that becomes familiar and then nostalgic once you have left. The dry season air has a faint, smoky quality almost permanently, because somewhere in the vast span of savanna, something is always burning, a deliberately set cultural burn, a lightning strike, a fire started by a campfire, or a friction spark from a dead tree. The sky over large burns has a particular beauty, a column of white smoke that catches the afternoon light and turns amber and rose and purple as the sun goes down. The burned ground the next morning has its own smell, cool and grey and mineral and curiously clean. Ranger Luke Buller, an Anindili traditional owner from Groote Eylandt, who has worked with fire management programs in Arnhem Land, described watching the kites work a firefront and said, in translation, something that has stayed with me, that the kites are not separate from the fire. They are part of how the country breathes. The country breathes. Fire as respiration, as something the land needs to do regularly, cyclically, to stay alive. And the birds as part of that breath, part of the mechanism, part of the rhythm. I have been thinking about that image since I first came across it. The country breathing. It is one of those images that changes the scale of things in a useful way, that makes the fire less an event and more a process, less a catastrophe and more a season. There is a detail about kite feathers that I want to share before I let us drift further towards sleep. The feathers of the black kite, especially the flight feathers of the wings and tail, are remarkable structures. A single primary feather from a black kite is roughly 30 centimeters long, curved slightly along its length and tapered to a flexible tip. It is made of the protein keratin, the same protein that makes up your fingernails, and the scales of reptiles, structured into an extraordinarily efficient aerofoil. Each feather has a central shaft, the raches, from which hundreds of paired branches, called barbs, extend outward. Each barb, in turn, has hundreds of paired branches, called barbules, and the barbules on adjacent barbs are hooked together by tiny structures called hamuli, so small they are invisible to the naked eye, that zip the barbs into a continuous, smooth vein. This is a structure so finely engineered, so elegantly functional, that even a slight disruption, a broken barbule, a bent shaft, is immediately groomed back into place by the bird's beak in a behavior called preening. Birds spend a significant portion of every day maintaining their feathers. It is essential maintenance, as essential as eating. A bird with damaged flight feathers is a bird in serious trouble. And yet these birds who depend on their feathers absolutely fly toward fire. They manage it. They work the thermals above and ahead of the flames rather than flying through them. The burning stick, when it is carried, is held briefly, and drop the bird does not linger with it. But still, the choice to approach a fire with everything that depends on those feathers is a choice made in full awareness of risk. At least, it seems that way. The reward, the extraordinary abundance of prey at a firefront, must be substantial enough that natural selection has favored birds willing to incur that risk. And over many generations, the birds that were good at managing it, that could read the fire's behavior well enough to stay close without being caught, were the ones that survived and had offspring. Evolution rewards the brave who are also clever. One more thing about fire, then we will let it go. Then we will let everything go. There is research suggesting that certain birds are able to detect fire not just through smoke and heat, but through the electrical activity that precedes and accompanies large fires. Wildfires in dry conditions are associated with significant electromagnetic activity, the friction of hot, dry air against vegetation, the piezoelectric effects of stressed and burning wood. Even the ionization of the air near firefronts produces detectable electromagnetic fields. Many birds navigate using the Earth's magnetic field. This is well established. Whether they can also detect the subtler electromagnetic signatures of fire is still being studied. Some researchers believe it may contribute to the ability of firehawk species to locate fires at the very large distances that have been reported. Others are more cautious. But the possibility is there. The possibility that these birds sense the fire not just with their eyes and nose, but with some deeper, older faculty, some electromagnetic awareness that evolved long before any of the species we have talked about tonight came into existence. Sensing the fire the way a compass senses north. Not knowing why, not needing to know why. Just going. There is something in that about intuition. About the knowledge that precedes explanation. About the things we know before we know why we know them. I think that kind of knowing deserves more respect than it often gets. The sky is very dark now, or wherever the sky is for you. The birds have settled for the night they're roosting somewhere, in a tree or on a ledge, their feathers fluffed slightly against the cool, their eyes half closed or fully closed, their metabolism slowing in the familiar way of birds at rest. Tomorrow, the dry season will continue. Somewhere in the savannah, a fire will start from lightning or from someone's careful hand, and the smoke will rise, and some perceptive bird far away will notice the smoke's quality, the color of it, the way it curves in the wind. And it will adjust its angle of flight and begin moving toward it. Not hurrying, just going. But that is tomorrow. Tonight, there is no fire and no smoke and no hunting. Tonight, there is only the dark and the cool and the slow quiet of things at rest. You, friend, do you know how far you have come today? Not in kilometers. In the accumulation of small moments, small decisions, small navigations of a world that asks a lot of us. You carried a lot today, probably. Most days, there is something being carried. And tonight, you put it down. Maybe not permanently. Maybe it will need carrying again tomorrow. But tonight, it is put down. And the putting down is enough. The kites put down their sticks too, eventually. They carry them to where they need to go and they let go. That is the whole of it. The carrying and the letting go. Let me tell you one last thing. A small thing, but it has stayed with me. In some Aboriginal languages of Northern Australia, there are multiple distinct words for different kinds of fire. Not just fire as a single concept, but the fire of a freshly lit grass fire, the fire of a smouldering log, the fire of a campfire left to die down, the fire of a running wildfire, the fire that is deliberately set for burning off, the fire that comes from lightning. Each distinct, each carrying its own weight of meaning and implication. This level of linguistic specificity of having words for distinctions that other languages collapse into one is a sign of deep, sustained attention to a thing over a very long time. It is how a language looks when a culture has been living closely with something for 60,000 years. Every nuance noticed, every difference named, every shade of meaning given its own home in the language. The birds have their own version of this knowledge, encoded not in language, but in behavior, in the micro-adjustments of a wing in thermal air, in the particular angle of approach to a fire's edge, in the learned distinction between a stick that is too hot to carry and a stick that is hot enough to start a new fire where it lands. Different forms of the same attention. The same long relationship with fire, expressed through very different kinds of minds. The night is full and quiet around you. The room is doing its gentle work, holding you, keeping you warm, keeping out the cold and the noise. You do not need to hold anything right now. The room is doing the holding. Let your thoughts unravel a little. Not all the way, not yet. Just a little. Let the edges soften. Let the colors of today fade back a little. The fire in your mind, the day's urgencies, and the unfinished things, let it bank down to something warmer and slower, the way a campfire banks in the small hours. Still there, still warm, just quieter. The savannah at night is a different place. The heat of the day lifts slowly after sunset, and the land cools in layers, the air near the ground cooling first, the air higher up slower to release its warmth. The stars over the Northern Territory on a clear night are extraordinary. The Milky Way, visible not as a vague suggestion, but as a full, dense, textured river of light across the sky. The insects come out at night, moths and beetles and crickets, moving through the darkness in ways that make the air feel alive, even after the visual world has shrunk to what the starlight shows. The frogmouth is awake, attending quietly from its perch, not distinguishable from the wood it sits on. The nightjar is calling a churring, purring sound that rolls across the cooling grass. Somewhere, a dingo moves through the dark scrub and stops and moves again. The kites are sleeping in their tree. All that fierce intelligence and aeronautical precision temporarily set aside. Just birds at rest. Warm, alive, sufficient. I have been thinking, as I have been telling you all of this, about what draws us to stories about intelligence in other animals. Why it moves us so when we discover that a bird carries fire, or that a crow solves a multi-step puzzle, or that a dolphin uses a tool, or that an elephant recognizes itself in a mirror. I think it is because it undoes a particular kind of loneliness. The loneliness of believing we are the only things that think, that plan, that remember and learn and adapt. When we discover that other creatures also do something like these things in their own way, in their own register, shaped by their own needs and their own evolutionary history, it changes the quality of the world. It makes the world less a backdrop to our experience and more a conversation. A place full of other kinds of minds, attending to other aspects of reality, making their own meaning. The kite carrying its burning stick is not trying to show us anything. It is not performing for us or for science or for the long record of things that matter. It is just doing what it does. But in doing what it does, it touches something in us, some recognition, some kinship. Hello, we almost want to say, so you figured something out too. The world is full of fires you will never see. Small fires, large fires, fires burning right now in dry savanna and boreal forest and Mediterranean scrubland. And above some of those fires, invisible in the night, birds are riding the thermals. Their eyes open or half open, their tails making tiny adjustments, their minds, whatever bird minds, are engaged with the information below them. All of that is happening simultaneously with this. With you lying here, with the room around you, with the dark. All of it simultaneous, all of it real, all of it the world being itself, with or without anyone watching. There is a spaciousness in that, if you let yourself feel it. The world does not need you to keep it going tonight. It is already going. Brilliantly, chaotically, beautifully going. Without your help, without your attention, without your anxiety. It was going before you arrived, and it will go after. And in the middle of all that going, here you are, resting, which is exactly the right thing to be doing. Let the images come now, if they want to come. No need to hold them or direct them. The brown savanna under a hot blue sky. The smell of smoke on dry air. A forked tail against an orange sky, adjusting. The flash of something bright below. The burned ground cooling at the edges. The first green shoot pushing up through grey ash. The frogmouth, perfectly still. The stars coming out. Let those images drift. You are not in charge of them. They will move the way smoke moves, following their own current, dispersing gradually, becoming something you are not following anymore. Somewhere in northern Australia, a family of black kites is roosting together in a large eucalyptus tree above a creek. The tree is silvery in the starlight. The creek is dry, it has been dry since May. The kites are still. Their forked tails hang down. Their eyes are closed. In a few hours, the sky will lighten, first grey, then orange, then gold, and the birds will stretch their wings and lean into the air and be gone. But that is hours away. For now, they rest. For now, there is only the cool and the dark and the particular silence of the Australian outback at 3 in the morning, the insect sounds and the small rustlings and the enormous starry quiet overhead. You and the kites are doing the same thing right now, in completely different places and for completely different reasons, in bodies shaped by completely different histories. Both resting, both giving over to the dark, both trusting in your different ways that the world will still be there in the morning. There is one more thing I want to tell you about before we fully let the night take over. One more thread I have been saving, because it belongs at this hour, in this particular quality of dark. The relationship between birds and fire goes back further than we have discussed. Much further. To understand how far back, we need to go somewhere cool and quiet, somewhere in the deep time of the planet, in an age so remote that the continents were in entirely different positions, and the animals alive then would be unrecognizable to us. Birds evolved from a group of two-legged dinosaurs called theropods, specifically from a lineage of small feathered theropods that lived in the late Jurassic and early Cretaceous periods. The oldest known bird-like creature is Archaeopteryx, which lived approximately 150 million years ago in what is now southern Germany, then a warm, shallow archipelago of tropical islands. Archaeopteryx had feathers, a wishbone, and what appear to be the beginnings of wing structures. But it also had clawed fingers and a long bony tail, an in-between creature, a hinge in the long story of life. By the time of the mass extinction event at the end of the Cretaceous period, 66 million years ago, when the asteroid struck and the world changed, there were already many species of birds. Most of them died. But not all. The lineage that survived small, ground-dwelling, seed-eating birds was the lineage that eventually became everything we see in the sky today. After the extinction, the birds radiated rapidly into the empty ecological niches left by the dinosaurs. Raptors, evolved. Waterbirds, evolved. Songbirds, evolved. The great diversification of avian life that produced the 10,000 plus species alive today unfolded over roughly 60 million years. And throughout that diversification, fire was a feature of the world they were diversifying into. Every raptor alive today carries, somewhere in its evolutionary history, the long experience of a lineage that has been navigating fire landscapes for millions of years. The firehawk behaviors we observe today are not inventions of the present. They are the expression of a relationship that was already old when the species themselves were new. I want to tell you about what researchers call Pyric herbivory. This is a term that came from fire ecologists studying the interaction between large grazing animals and fire in open grassland and savanna systems, and it describes something that is relevant here in a beautiful and slightly unexpected way. In fire-dependent grasslands, the savannas of Africa, the plains of North America, the grasslands of Australia grazing animals and fire exist in a cycle that is essentially co-regulatory. Grazers eat the grass. Eaten grass produces less fuel. Less fuel means less intense fires, or no fire at all in heavily grazed areas. Fire burns the grass. Burned grass produces fresh, green growth. Fresh green growth attracts grazers. Grazers eat the fresh growth, which eventually reduces the fuel again. This cycle, fire and herbivory working together to shape the landscape, has been operating for millions of years. The savannas and grasslands that dominate much of the tropical world are not just the result of climate, not just the result of rainfall patterns and soil chemistry. They are the product of this ongoing interaction between fire and teeth, between the burning and the eating. And into this cycle, the firehawk birds insert themselves with their own form of participation. By spreading fire, they expand the perimeter of the fire flush, the zone of fresh growth, the area where prey is concentrated. They are, in effect, shaping the distribution of the very cycle that feeds them. This is the thing about complex ecosystems that takes a while to fully absorb. At every scale, every participant in the system is simultaneously responding to the system and shaping it. There is no creature that is purely passive, purely reactive. Every organism that eats changes what is available to be eaten. Every predator that hunts changes the behavior of the prey. Every fire that burns changes what will burn next. The system makes the players, and the players make the system, continuously, without pause, for as long as anyone can trace. Let me bring in something from a completely different part of the world, because this story is not limited to Australia, even if that is where it has been studied most. In the grasslands of sub-Saharan Africa, the Serengeti, the Okavango, the Kruger, the same basic dynamic exists. Large fires move across the plains seasonally, and a community of opportunistic birds follows them. The fire reveals prey. The birds gather. The birds compete, briefly, then disperse, as the fire moves on. African species known to follow fire fronts include Montagu's harrier, the African harrier hawk, the long-crested eagle, various species of roller, the lilac-breasted roller, and the Eurasian roller, and the extraordinary secretary bird, which is in a category of its own. The secretary bird deserves a moment. It is a large raptor standing nearly 1.5 meters tall with the body of an eagle and the legs of a crane, long and grey-feathered, ending in short, powerful feet. It walks. Where most raptors hunt from the air, the secretary bird walks through grassland on those long legs, stamping and kicking at vegetation to flush prey, then striking with its powerful feet to kill. It specializes in snakes. It can kill venomous snakes with a speed and precision that makes the interaction look almost casual. At Firefronts, the secretary bird works the edge with those long legs, walking steadily ahead of the flames, kicking at the grass, catching the snakes and lizards and large insects that the heat is driving out. It is an extraordinary image, this tall, stately, slightly improbable bird, walking into the smoke on stilted grey legs, entirely unruffled. I think about the secretary bird sometimes when I think about dignity. About moving through difficult things without appearing to be in a hurry. About knowing what you are doing well enough that even the fire is just another day. The whistling kite Haliastur sphenurus is another of the documented fire-attending species, and I want to spend a little time with it because it has a personality that I find hard to resist. The whistling kite is named for its call, a long, descending, whistling note that carries remarkably far across open water or grassland. Once you know the call, you will hear it everywhere in the Australian inland, from tall dead trees above rivers, from fence posts along country roads, from the sky above wet season floodplains. It is one of the defining sounds of the Australian bush. Whistling kites are associated particularly with water. They are almost always found near rivers, wetlands, or flooded plains, and they are strong, efficient, somewhat lazy-looking flyers who spend long portions of each day soaring. They have a wide dietary range: fish, frogs, small mammals, carrion, insects, and they are not above piracy, stealing food from other birds with a boldness that seems slightly at odds with their generally relaxed bearing. In fire season, when the wet country dries and the rivers shrink to chains of waterholes, the whistling kite's range expands. They follow the last water, but they also follow the fire. The flush of prey at the firefront is too good to ignore. They have been documented participating in the fire-following aggregations of kites and falcons, working the leading edge of fires in the same way as the black kites, though perhaps with somewhat less of the deliberate stick-carrying behavior that has been most clearly attributed to the black kite and brown falcon. The whistling kite seems like a bird that knows when something good is happening and makes sure it is present for it. There is a pragmatic ease in that, an openness to abundance when it arrives. I want to return, briefly, to the question of what we mean when we use the word intention in this context. When we say a bird intentionally carries fire, we are making a claim about the bird's mental state, about what the bird is representing in its mind, and whether that representation includes some version of the outcome it is trying to bring about. This is philosophically complex territory, and it is made more complex by the fact that we cannot directly access the inner states of other animals. We can only observe behavior and draw inferences. What the observations suggest, at the most conservative interpretation, is that the fire-carrying behavior is not random and not immediately reflexive. It occurs in specific contexts, particularly near fire breaks and natural barriers. It is directed, the material is carried to unburned vegetation, not to already burning areas. It produces an outcome that is systematically advantageous to the bird. And it appears to be learned rather than fixed, observed in some individuals and not others, in some populations more than others, and in adults more than juveniles. These features are consistent with what we would call purposive behavior in humans, behavior directed toward a goal, shaped by prior learning, responsive to relevant environmental features. Whether there is also something it is like to be a bird making this choice, whether there is experience, awareness, something we might call purpose, felt from the inside that we cannot know. And perhaps that is the right place to let the question rest. Not answered, but held. Opened like a window rather than closed like a door. The uncertainty does not diminish the behavior. The behavior is remarkable, regardless of whether we can name the internal state behind it. Something extraordinary is happening at those firefronts. That is enough. Something I have been wanting to say for a while. The firehawk story is also, among other things, a story about science coming to terms with limits in its own assumptions. For most of the history of Western natural science, the working assumption was that complex purposive behavior planning, tool use, cultural transmission of learned strategies was the exclusive province of humans, and perhaps secondarily, of a few of our closest primate relatives. Every new report of sophisticated behavior in non-human animals was met initially with skepticism, requests for more rigorous evidence, and a search for simpler explanations. In some cases, this skepticism was correct and productive. In others, it delayed the acceptance of things that were genuinely true. The firehawk story sits in an interesting place in this history, a case where the evidence was present in oral tradition and in the observations of indigenous practitioners for a very long time, and where academic science was slow to engage with it seriously because it did not fit the available theoretical framework. The researchers who eventually published the formal study were explicit about this. They noted that accounts of firehawk behavior had been documented in informal notes and correspondence for decades before being taken seriously as a research question. They acknowledged that indigenous knowledge systems had held this information with precision and detail long before Western science arrived at the same observation. This is not a comfortable reflection for science as an institution, but it is an honest one. And the willingness to make it honestly, to say clearly, we were slow here, and these other ways of knowing were faster, is itself a kind of progress. A small but real shift in the relationship between different ways of attending to the world. Knowledge does not belong to any one tradition. It belongs to whoever has been paying close enough attention for long enough, with enough care. And sometimes, the paying attention happens in languages and forms that the dominant institutions cannot immediately recognize. But it is still knowledge. It is still true. And it was always there, waiting patiently for someone to come and notice it. There is a particular kind of wonder that comes from learning something you did not know before, at night, with nowhere to be. Not the sharp wonder of daytime discovery, the alert, energized kind, but a softer kind, a wonder that spreads out sideways rather than pointing upward. The kind that settles gently over everything and makes the world feel, briefly and beautifully, stranger and richer than you had remembered it being. I hope that is what is happening for you right now. Not that you are keeping yourself awake to think about it, I hope you are not doing that. But that this knowledge, these images, have softened something in you the way water softens hard clay. Gently, over time, until the shape you hold is a little looser and a little more accommodating than it was before. The fire season in northern Australia typically runs from about June through October. These are the months when the tropical dry season is at its most absolute, the rivers fully low, the waterholes shrinking, the grass brown and crackling underfoot. The air has a static quality in the dry season, an electric dryness that you feel in your skin and on the back of your throat. Everything is waiting. The land is patient in a way that feels almost deliberate. And then lightning. A dry thunderstorm in late October, one of the early electrical storms of the approaching wet season, coming with clouds and noise but little rain. Lightning strikes a dead tree or a patch of dry spinifex, and the fire starts bright and fast in the dry grass, moving with the wind. Within hours, the smoke is visible for 50 kilometers. And somewhere out in the savannah, a black kite tilts its forked tail, adjusts its angle, and begins moving toward the smoke. And another. And another. They converge from different directions, drawn by the same signal, following the same old knowledge. By the time the fire is a kilometer long, there are 40 birds above it. By the time it is 5 kilometers long, there are several hundred. They ride the thermals, they watch the ground below, they drop and strike and lift and drop again. The fire moves through the night, and the birds work it until the light fails too completely, even for their remarkable eyes. Then they roost near the fire's edge, the air still warm, the embers still glowing, and in the morning they are back. I want to say something about what it means to pay attention to the non-human world. Not in a grand or prescriptive way, just something small that I have noticed over a long time of finding this kind of subject worth thinking about. There is a quality of life that is available to people who regularly give some of their attention to the lives of other species. Not in a professional or academic way necessarily, just the habit of noticing what the birds are doing when you walk somewhere, or the habit of wondering what the tree in your neighborhood is, or the habit of reading something at the end of the day about the world beyond the human world. That quality is something like perspective, but it is not quite that. Perspective implies a stepping back, a distance. What I mean is something more like inclusion, the sense of being part of something that is not just human, not just your story, not just your century. The sense of being embedded in a world that was doing extraordinary things long before you arrived and will keep doing them long after. The firehawks do not need us to know about them. They were doing this for thousands of years before any scientist noted it down, and they will keep doing it regardless of what we think about it. But knowing about it, having that image in us, of the forked tail above the smoke, the burning stick carried to unburned grass, adds something. It adds a story to the world. A true one. One that was already there, that we have only just started to see. The bones of birds are extraordinary things. One more small fact before we go, because it connects to something I love about the relationship between lightness and capability. Birds that fly have hollow bones, not hollow in a fragile, empty sense, but hollow in a designed sense. The long bones of a bird's wing, for instance, are structured internally with a network of fine struts and braces, a design that engineers call a truss system that provides maximum strength for minimum weight. The air sacs that make up the bird's respiratory system extend into many of these bones, so that even the skeleton itself participates in the breathing process. A large black kite weighs roughly 800 grams, less than a kilogram, with a wingspan of more than a meter. The wing loading, the ratio of body weight to wing area, is extremely low, which is why kites can soar so effortlessly on gentle thermals. They are built to spend as much time in the air as possible with as little expenditure of energy as possible. To be that light, to have that relationship with gravity, not fighting it, but finding the precise angle at which the air holds you. To ride the heat of a fire in those hollow bones. There is something in that image I keep returning to. The hollow bone full of breath. The weight made minimal by design. The fire doing the lifting. When the first European settlers arrived in Australia in the late 18th century, many of them wrote about fire with alarm. The landscape they encountered was one shaped by tens of thousands of years of deliberate, burning, open, park-like woodlands, grasslands dotted with trees, a visual clarity that was the direct result of regular, low-intensity burning by Aboriginal people managing their country. The settlers misread this landscape as natural as simply how Australia was. They did not initially understand that the openness of the eucalyptus woodland, the abundance of grassland, the relative scarcity of dense undergrowth was the result of continuous human management. As settlement expanded and Aboriginal land management practices were disrupted or suppressed, the landscape changed. Vegetation thickened. Fuel nodes built. The fire regime that had shaped the land for 60,000 years was interrupted, and the landscape stored the consequence of that interruption in dry wood and dense thicket, and the slow accumulation of what had not burned. The firehawks flew above this changed landscape, attending the fires that still occurred, the lightning strike fires, the fires that escaped from camps, the fires that started on roadsides, but the pattern of fire had changed. Instead of the frequent, low-intensity mosaic burns of traditional management, there were now periodic, intense, large-scale fires, the kind that come when fuel builds up over years and then ignites in extreme conditions. There is a lesson in that history about the cost of interrupting something that was working, about the difference between the managed fire and the catastrophic fire, about the knowledge that was required to maintain the balance and the consequence of that knowledge being set aside. In recent decades, there has been a significant and hopeful movement to restore Indigenous fire practices in Australia. Land management agencies are working with Aboriginal fire practitioners to reintroduce the fine-grained, seasonally appropriate burning that maintains the mosaic landscape. Results have been documented across millions of hectares, reductions in the intensity of large fires, increases in biodiversity, the return of species that had become locally rare in the absence of appropriate fire. The knowledge was never lost. It was just not being listened to. I think about that sometimes when I think about the things we know personally, individually, that we are not quite listening to. The body knowledge that predates conscious analysis. The intuitions that surface in quiet moments and get dismissed in busy ones. The old rhythms of need for rest, for stillness, for simplicity that get overridden by the noise of everything that seems more urgent. The land knew it needed fire. The birds knew where to find the fire. The Aboriginal practitioners knew how to work with the fire. The knowing was always there. The listening was the variable. You know what you need tonight. You are already doing it. The last light I want to offer you before we go fully dark is this one. In the period immediately following a large fire in northern Australia, if you are standing on a hillside above the burned country in the early morning, before the sun has had time to heat the air enough to create thermals, in that still, cool, early light, the burned ground has a particular appearance. The charred black of the grass gives way at the unburned margin to the pale yellow-brown of standing grass. The boundary is sharp, a clear line drawn by the fire through the landscape. On one side, black, open, still faintly smoking in places. On the other, the waiting grass, untouched, full of the animals that did not run far enough to leave, but far enough to survive. And at that boundary, if you are patient and quiet, you will see the birds. Not dozens of them, the big aggregation has dispersed, but a few. A kite, sitting on a charred stump, looking at the unburned grass with the patient, evaluating look of something that is working a calculation. A brown falcon, making a low pass over the boundary, its wings close to the stems, flushing something up. A harrier tilting over the black ground, reading it, hunting it with that low, rocking glide. The day is just beginning. The fire is done. The birds are still working. The boundary between what burned and what did not is the seam they are following, the line where two worlds meet, where the fire has made the ordinary landscape extraordinary for a little while longer. I find that image quietly beautiful. The seam between things. The productive edge where what has changed meets what has not yet. The birds at the margin doing what birds at margins always do, finding, in the between place, everything they need. Let me stay a little longer in the early morning, because I am not quite ready to leave it. As the sun climbs and the air begins to warm, the thermals start those rising columns of heated air that birds use as the sky's own elevator. You can see a thermal forming before you can feel it. The first sign is a bird beginning to circle. Where there was one bird, there are then 3, then 6, then a loose column of birds spiraling upward as if pulled by something invisible. The thermal carries them up sometimes hundreds of meters without a single wing beat. And from that height, they peel off and glide, covering kilometers in a slow, effortless descent until the next thermal catches them and carries them up again. This is how the kites travel long distances. Not by flapping. Flapping costs energy, and energy is always precious. But by soaring, by reading the landscape for its invisible architecture of rising and sinking air, and moving through that architecture with the minimum of effort. The dark patches of burned ground are the best thermal generators. Dark surfaces absorb more heat from the sun, heat the air above them more strongly, and produce more vigorous thermals. The kites know this. They use burned country as a kind of launch pad, circling up from the dark ground and gliding out over the unburned savanna, gaining the height they need to see far and hunt far. The burned ground feeds them, and then it carries them. In the fire's aftermath, even the air is the fire's gift. There is a word in Japanese komorebi that means the interplay of light and leaves, specifically the way sunlight filters through moving foliage and creates shifting patterns of light and shadow. It is one of those words that names something beautiful that other languages have left unnamed, and it is usually cited as an example of the poetic precision that some languages achieve in their vocabulary. I have been thinking, as I have been talking to you tonight, that there ought to be a word for the thing that happens when you understand that a behavior you thought was simple is actually extraordinarily complex. For that particular quality of cognitive reorganization, when something that seemed ordinary reveals itself to have depth you had not suspected. When the birds above the fire stop being background and become foreground. When the kite carrying the stick stops being just a bird and becomes something you have to sit with. Maybe that word already exists in some language I have not encountered. Or maybe it is a feeling that does not yet have a name in any language, the way many of the most important feelings are. Without names, they just arrive, like light through leaves, unannounced, and you know them because you are in them. The night is holding you well, I think. The stories are settling. The kites and the fires and the burned grass and the deep time of it all, it is all becoming something softer now. Not a lesson or a set of facts to be remembered. Just the texture of the world. One more layer of what is true. One more story that was always happening and that you now carry in you somewhere. That is the thing about learning at night. It goes somewhere different than daytime learning. Daytime learning wants to be used, wants to become an argument, or a plan, or a thing to tell someone. Nighttime learning just settles. It becomes part of the ground. You will not remember every word of this, and that is exactly right. But something will stay. Some image, some feeling, some small widening of the sense of what the world contains. I want to add one more thing about the black kite, because I realize I have not mentioned one of the most extraordinary facts about this species, and it would be wrong to leave it out. The black kite is one of the most abundant raptors on Earth. This is unusual. Most large birds of prey are relatively rare. Their position near the top of food chains means there is a natural upper limit on their numbers. But the black kite has found ways to thrive in close proximity to human habitation in a way that most raptors have not. In parts of India, particularly over cities like Delhi, Mumbai, and Kolkata, black kites are extraordinarily common. Thousands of them wheel above urban areas, exploiting the food resources that dense human populations generate. They take scraps from open-air markets, steal fish from fishermen, and monitor rooftop kitchens with a casual professionalism. In some Indian cities, the density of black kites above certain neighborhoods approaches one bird for every few hundred square meters. Looking up at certain urban skylines in India is looking up through a slow, circling cloud of kites, their forked tails constantly adjusting, their keen eyes scanning downward. This adaptability, this willingness to take advantage of new food sources, to move into new environments, to learn from what other individuals are doing, is the same quality that underlies the fire-following behavior. The kite is successful precisely because it is flexible, because it does not wait for the food to come to it, because it reads the landscape, whether that landscape is a city or a burning savanna, and finds the opportunity in it. There is a kind of intelligence that is measured not by what it solves in the abstract, but by how well it navigates the specific world it inhabits. The black kite navigates its world extraordinarily well. It has been navigating it for a very long time. And it will, all going well, keep navigating it long after most of what we call civilization has been revised into something unrecognizable. I find that oddly comforting. The kites will still be there. Somewhere above some fire, somewhere above some city, somewhere in the warm upslope of a thermal circling, watching, finding what they need, doing what they have always done. The forked tail against a sky that is still the same sky. There is a particular quality to the hour just before the body fully surrenders to sleep, a loosening, a softening of the boundary between the thinking mind and whatever lies beneath it. Thoughts begin to have a slightly different character, less consecutive, less governed by the usual rules of cause and effect. Images arrive without explanation. Connections form that the daytime mind would never permit. For a few minutes, the world has more room in it than usual. I love that threshold. It is one of the few places where the mind relaxes its editorial function, where it stops deciding what belongs and what does not, and simply receives whatever comes. The kite and the fire and the old burning country and the 65,000 years and the green shoots in the ash and the hollow bones full of air, let all of it come if it wants to come. You do not have to organize it. You do not have to understand it. You just have to be the place it lands. In the Waterman language of the Northern Territory, one of the words associated with fire in the cultural burning tradition carries a meaning that translates, roughly, as making the country clean. Not clean in the sense of sterile or empty, but clean in the sense of renewed, cleared of what has accumulated. returned to the condition from which new growth is most easily possible. I keep returning to that idea, making the country clean, the fire as an act of care rather than destruction, the burning as what the landscape needs to be itself again, to begin again, to be available to the next season of life. It occurs to me, at this hour, that rest might be something like that. Not emptiness, not the absence of things, but a clearing, a burning through of the accumulated weight of the day, the small anxieties, the half-finished thoughts, the residue of all those hours of being awake and responsive and responsible. Sleep moves through all of that, the way fire moves through dry grass, not gently, but cleanly. And what comes after is not nothing. What comes after is morning, fresh green, the renewed country. You are making yourself clean tonight. That is all this is. The very ordinary, very ancient, extraordinarily important act of letting the day burn through. The savannah does not mourn what burned. It simply turns toward tomorrow. The roots hold what is needed. The seeds hold what is needed. The kites hold in memory the knowledge of where to go and what to do when the smoke rises again. All of it patient, all of it sure, all of it resting now in the enormous dark. You hold what is needed too. Underneath the tiredness, underneath the noise of the day, something patient and sure, already preparing for tomorrow, already doing what needs to be done, already beginning the work of renewal in the quiet hours. All you have to do is let it. The room you are in is cooling slightly, or it is already cool and you are warm inside it. The particular quality of night that is happening right now, this specific hour, this specific dark, is not a dark that requires anything of you. It is just the world in its night mode, patient, ongoing, doing what it does. Let your eyes, if they are still partly open, go all the way closed. Let the darkness behind them be the same darkness as the room. Let there be no difference between inside and outside for a little while. Just the dark, just the quiet, just the slow movement of breath in you, which is not anything you are doing, it is something that is happening to you, something that your body has been doing reliably for every moment of your life without being asked. The kites are asleep. The frogmouth is perfectly still on its branch. The burned grass is cooling. The green is already preparing underground. The roots are already sending signal, already marshalling what they need, already making ready for the morning's push toward the light. Everything that needs to happen tonight is already happening. Without effort, without supervision. The world is managing itself with extraordinary competence, as it always has, as it will continue to do. And you are part of that world, being managed by the same forces, held by the same night, carried toward the same morning. I want to linger just a moment longer in the fact of the bird's eye, because I have mentioned it several times and I do not think I have quite done it justice, and there is something in a close examination of it that belongs to this hour and this particular quality of attention. The eye of a raptor is, proportionally, enormous. In a bird the size of a black kite, the eyes together weigh roughly the same as the brain. If human eyes were scaled to the same proportion relative to our heads, they would be roughly the size of a grapefruit each. The skull could not accommodate them. They are held in place, not by the surrounding socket, but by a ring of tiny bones called sclerotic ossicles that give the eye its precise shape and keep it stable during the rapid head movements that a hunting bird makes. The retina of a raptor contains 5 types of color receptor compared to our 3. This means they perceive color in a richness that we cannot quite imagine, a spectrum of experience in which what we call the visible world is a subset of something larger and more complex. They see ultraviolet light, which illuminates the trails of small mammals in ways invisible to us, a landscape written in urine and musk and the secretions of scent glands, all glowing in the frequencies above violet. And their resolution. The density of photoreceptors in a raptor's central fovea is estimated to be at least twice that of the human eye, possibly higher. Where we see a blur at 300 meters, a large falcon sees detail. Where we lose an object against a complex background, the raptor continues to track it. Some research has suggested that a large eagle or falcon, circling at high altitude, can resolve detail equivalent to being perhaps 3 times closer than it actually is. What does that mean, practically? It means that a kite circling at 100 meters above a firefront sees the individual insects fleeing the grass. It sees the particular lizard that has frozen rather than running, mistakenly confident in its camouflage. It sees the smoldering tip of the stick it is about to pick up, reads the quality of the ember, judges whether it is worth carrying. All of this processed in fractions of a second, all of this informing a decision that the bird makes and enacts with a speed and precision that a human pilot would find humbling. To see the world through those eyes, even for a moment. To have the fire be not an orange blur but a detailed, legible, richly colored map of heat and fuel and movement and opportunity. To see the burned margin as a precise boundary, not an approximation. To see the smoke as a text written in chemical signatures. That must be something. Something vivid and vast and continuously informative in a way that our blurrier, narrower, less spectral vision can only partially approximate. There is a nest somewhere in a large eucalyptus above a dry river in the Northern Territory. It has been used for several years, repaired and rebuilt each dry season, the platform of sticks growing broader and deeper with each addition. Kites mate for life, or for many years, and return to the same nest site season after season. The nest is lined with soft material feathers, dry grass, bark strips, and in it, in the right season, 2 or 3 pale eggs sit in the bowl of it, warming in the dappled heat that comes through the eucalyptus leaves above. The chicks that hatch in that nest will grow up watching their parents leave and return, watching the patterns of the sky, the wind direction, the quality of the thermals, the position of the sun, the signals that a rising smoke column sends across the blue air. They will watch and listen and eventually test their wings above the same river country their parents have hunted for years. And in the dry season, when the smoke rises, they will feel something, some pull, some recognition, some ancient orientation toward the fire, and they will begin to go. The knowledge is in them. Some of it from before they were hatched, written into the architecture of their nervous systems across uncountable generations. And some of it from the long watching, from the patient attendance on a parent who knew where to be and when. Both kinds of knowing, working together. The ancient and the learned. The instinct and the attention. We have both kinds too. More than we usually credit. I have been thinking, across all of this, about the relationship between danger and abundance. About the fact that the most rewarding places for the kites, and often for us, are also the most charged. The firefront is dangerous. It is hot, it is fast-moving, it is unpredictable in its minor details, even if its major logic is legible. A kite that miscalculates, that drops too low, that misjudges a wind shift, that holds a burning stick a few seconds too long, can be hurt, can be killed. The danger is real, and the birds are not unaware of it. They work the fire with a carefulness that is visible, watching, adjusting, keeping a buffer between themselves and the worst of the heat. But they go. They go because the abundance at the firefront is worth the management of the risk. Because the careful, attentive approach to something genuinely dangerous yields something that a cautious distance from it never would. There is a small life philosophy in that. Not recklessness, not flying into the hottest part without a plan, but the willingness to move toward the thing that is charged and alive and uncertain, with attention and with skill, and to find there what the safer distance would never offer. The fire feeds those who are willing to come close enough, and clever enough, and calm enough to work it well. The last image I want to leave you with is a simple one. Nothing dramatic. Just a small thing that I find I keep returning to in my own mind when I think about all of this, long after the research and the reading and the following of threads has stopped. A single black kite in the late afternoon. Not at a fire between fires. Just circling on a thermal above a dry creek bed, the light going amber and long around it, its shadow moving across the pale sand of the creek far below. Not hurrying, not hunting, exactly just present, just attending, just being in the air, above its country, in the way that is natural to it. The forked tail adjusting once to a slight shift in the thermal, the wings held flat and steady, the head angled downward, watching the creek, watching the scrub on either side, watching the horizon for smoke that is not there yet, but may arrive. Patient, alert, ready. In the whole of the landscape below it, the dry creek and the sparse trees and the termite mounds casting long, late shadows, and the brown grass holding the last warmth of the afternoon sun, in all of that, the kite is the most attentive thing, the most present, the most thoroughly in the moment of its own life. That is the last thing I want to give you before we go. Not a lesson or a conclusion, just that image. The kite in its thermal, above its country, in the amber afternoon, waiting for whatever comes next with a patience that has been perfected across more generations than anyone can count. If you dream tonight, perhaps you will be high above some warm, vast, amber-colored landscape. The air full of the smell of grass and smoke. The horizon a long, gentle curve. Ahead of you, a thin line of orange light moving through the brown. A fire, but a small one, a manageable one. A fire that belongs to this country and knows what it is doing. And you are moving toward it. Not with any particular urgency, just moving on the warm air, because the warm air takes you there. Below you, the shadow of wings, the slight adjustment of a forked tail. The world very large and very clear and very simple in the way that dream worlds sometimes are stripped of everything unnecessary, containing only what matters. The fire and the air and the wings and the slow, beautiful turning of a creature that knows exactly what it is doing and where it is going. Go gently now. The story is told. The fire has moved on through. What is left is the warm ground and the quiet and the smell of something that burned and is now done burning, leaving space, leaving possibility, leaving the dark, rich ground from which something new will come. Thank you for spending this hour with me. Thank you for being curious enough and still enough to follow this strange and beautiful story to its end. If it brought you something, some lightness, some wonder, some loosening of the day's grip that is everything I could want for it. Good night, you. Sleep quietly. The world is doing its night work all around you, and you do not have to help.